Hello and welcome to the sixth episode of this virtual panel discussion on Brands of Bharat, where today our expert panelist will help us understand how, with help of narrative building, the brands can make really impactful connection with tier 2 and tier 3 cities in Bharat. This new Bharat, which has paved way for opportunities for brands across the nation, basically to connect with their consumers in ways like never before, right? And all this comes with its own set of challenges that have compelled each and every one of you, all the marketers, all the agencies, to experiment and mold their strategies in order to achieve uh, given or achieve desired results, I would say. Uh, Today we have a very esteemed panel of marketers who have been doing business in this new Bharat for quite some time now, and they can help us understand the role that specifically that content plays and the challenges that these brands face while making connections with tier 2 and tier 3 audience, right? So now let's quickly welcome our first panelist today. In no particular order, Abhinav Kumar. He's a very familiar face who is currently VP Marketing at Paytm. Hi, Abhinav. Our second guest today is Varun Ganju, who is the founder of Bazi Games and is currently looking after marketing at Bazi. Hi, Varun.
Hi guys, hi, thank you so much for the invite.
Our next guest is Suvir Bajaj. Suvir is the co-founder of Zoom Media and Foxy Moron. He's also a podcaster, by the way, so I've heard a few of them. Nicely done, Suvir, and welcome to this panel discussion.
Lovely. Good afternoon, Rahul, and good afternoon to the rest of my panelists. Thanks so much for having heard my podcast. Appreciate it.
The next guest is Head of Marketing at Delton. Welcome to this virtual discussion. Arindam, how are you?
Hi everyone, I'm good. I hope all of you are also very well, doing well. Thank you for having me here.
Sure. Our fifth guest is Gautam Das, who is VP Marketing and Communications at Cycle Pure Agarbatti. Welcome, Gautam.
Thank you, Rahul. Thank you all other panelists. Looking forward.
And last but not the least, let's welcome Pranav Bagai, who is the co-founder and CEO of Poker Sports League. Hi, Pranav.
Hi Rahul, hi fellow panelists. Really looking forward to this.
And my co-host today is Runa Sinha. Runa is Vice President at Nukkad by Stage, which is a premium and sensible content company for Bharat. It has got a Hindi audience reach of 50 million plus, and they produce some informative and empowering content. You guys should see it. It's with a sense of humor and satire, all of that through some fictional characters derived from a very real world. So that is that, and now without further ado, let me begin today's discussion by asking Suvir first some do's and don'ts to create some worth remembering narratives, in this case for tier 2 and tier 3 particular audience. Suvir.
Thanks, Rahul. I'm going to take the opportunity, since this is the first question, to kind of set some context for this chat that we have over the course of the next hour. Now, my background, as you said, is I'm an advertiser for the last 15 years, and of course, very deep rooted with, with advertising approach when it comes to structuring narratives and communications for a variety of consumer and business brands that we face. I think from a context-setting perspective, the first thing to remember is that it's been really, the first thing that's important to remember is that it's been really instrumental that we talk about tier 2 and tier 3 brands, that this aggressive push towards marketing towards tier 3 and tier 2 and tier 3 consumers is a very new push, and I think that's important to remember how the novelty in the push is going to kind of emerge. So I'm gonna lay a little bit of emphasis on the novelty in the push with regards to the role of new media, the role of digital and digitalization in context to how the narrative is kind of really evolved while setting context to tier 2 and tier 3 audiences. Now, typically, when you use the word target, historically, targeting was a function of reaching audiences, right? When you use the word of communicating, when you use the word communicating in today's way, we're not only talking about communication, we're talking about engagement, right? And I think today, for all brands that market, it becomes very important for brands to kind of identify what the role of the brand is, in the life of their consumer. Now, like I said earlier, tier 2 and tier 3 may not necessarily have been very aggressively targeted in the past, but now with the digital influx, of course, there's a massive push and massive penetration of digital in tier 2 and tier 3, which makes tier 2 and tier 3 audiences so much more accessible from the perspective of being rightly targeted. Now, if you look at advertising historically, there are three key pillars that all advertising campaigns are built on, right? One is what is the consumer insight, two is what is the media, and three is what is the messaging, right? So these three act as very key pillars while building narratives for brands across any cohort, across any target group, so as to speak. Now, it's interesting because tier 2 and tier 3 pose a completely different set of challenges and opportunities in terms of their audiences. And as a result, customer insight that a brand may garner with regards to its tier 1 audiences may be completely different when it comes to tier 2 and tier 3. Tier 2 and tier 3 are also recently evangelized audiences and have recently been aggressively marketed to. So they also recently have the option of choice. Earlier, in a country like India, it was a factor of availability and distribution. So if I was in tier 3, I went to my local kirana shop and I purchased whatever was available to me. But today, by virtue of the modern logistics chain and supply chain and distribution, tier 2 and tier 3 also now aggressively faced with the dilemma of making a choice when it comes to selecting brand partners that live in their life. So I think the first point that I want to kind of emphasize on is the importance of getting the customer insight right when it comes to understanding tier 2 and tier 3 audiences. Now, when it comes to selection of media as point number 2, typically the role of media was delivering reach and delivering impact, right? Of course, that narrative changes so greatly now when it comes to the selection of media, because with the opening up of digital over the last maybe 7 or 8 years aggressively with tier 2 and tier 3, the role of that media now doesn't become one to many communication. All of a sudden we built a fourth pillar with inside media message, which is now engagement, right? And the role of that media becomes to keep these audiences continuously engaged. Previously, when brands targeted tier 2 and tier 3, the importance of building trust, retaining customers, building loyalty was never very high because maybe people weren't spoiled for choice when it comes to selecting brand partners. But now you have a completely new cohort of brands that are targeting to tier 2 and tier 3. We've got some brands here in the payments, some panelists here, the payment space, etc. Categories which didn't exist 10 years ago that were targeted to tier 2, tier 3. And so important, and I'll obviously let Abhinav speak more about this as well, but so important when it comes to building trust with these consumers, building retention cycle with these consumers, because the narrative is completely different when you target tier 1 versus a tier 3. And lastly, I feel, the third pillar, which was messaging, when it comes to selecting the right message. In India, because we've always been such a large country, messaging that typically targets the entire country becomes very challenging because of the fact that we've got people from length and breadth of the country who speak different languages, who understand different messages, have different cultural insights. All of a sudden now, by virtue of the fact that modern marketing, we're now able to customize messaging as well, basis region, basis geography, basis customer insight, basis the media that's able to deliver the message in terms of its engagement, in terms of its reach, in terms of its impact. And all of a sudden, it's kind of opened up the diaspora completely from a messaging perspective in terms of creating opportunities as far as targeting tier 2 and tier 3. So to summarize, I just want to kind of summarize the 4 pillars that we spoke about. The first is understanding customer insight, which differs greatly in a country like India. The second is selection of the right media vehicle. The third is selection of the right message with the right language, with the right frequency. And the fourth is counter communication in the format of engagement to build trust, to build loyalty, to build retention, and everything that wasn't really challenged with us marketers 10 years ago.
Really nice, Somi. Thank you so much.
Hi, Abhinav. I would like to know from you that in your opinion, what role does content play in your marketing strategy and how has it evolved, during these years?
Thank you, Rima, for this question. So, see, there has been like a very common word. We keep saying content is the king. Who made it the king? Why content is the king? Because it is the people who will make it the king. So, if the content is liked by the people, then the content will be the king. So, this is how it flows out in content marketing. No user is interested in seeing your ads when they are doing something else. So everything is bothering them, is clutter, is disturbing them. So you have to go and deliver your message. It could be a marketing message, but you have to deliver it in the same way and in the similar kind of content which the user they are regularly using. And it is also, the content also has to be smart. So you have to see what content you are delivering. You cannot just deliver any content and people will forward. There was a forward thing, there was things going on how people were consuming, but now people are developing and they are becoming smart. And so we have to send them more relevant message and send them in the medium. In the medium, when I say not just the online medium, the online medium also different category where you want to post is a written article or a video or audio. So you have to find the right means when you're getting into the content. And if it will be a useful content, people will engage. So like very some recent examples I want to give it from Paytm. So two of our recent example which has nothing to do with our product. So the recent video from our Women's Day, and maybe a year ago we did a video with a meme of Rasode Mein Kaun Tha. So it was a kind of a meme video, we took it out. And the meme video was actually very funny. It was going viral for some other reason. So like it was just some old video which came out. But we managed to deliver anti-fraud messaging in that. No matter how good you make a content for delivering an anti-fraud message, nobody is going to watch it. And so we said, okay, why not? If everyone is having fun with this content, let's deliver a message within the content. So these are some of the two examples where we, from the marketing team, we try to actively, we have all the topics and things which we need to cover. And then we keep a track, what is happening, how the user is engaging. And then we try to bring those content in the right time that we can say that, okay, we have something to deliver with this content right now. So it is not like we can plan everything. So content marketing also cannot be planned, like you can have a 1 year plan and you will do that. You will always have to look for the trend, what people are talking, what people are interested in, and then get into that. And then also develop new content, not just the content which is already there. So if you look at our recent activities with the Paytm Umpire partner, so the kind of communication we are doing on our social media, we are creating our own characters, we are creating our own jokes. And so it is not just that we are just taking any other content and we are just interacting with the user, but we want to create content and want to talk to the language, the language which my user or my user base which is using. And so this is how the content marketing is very important, and content itself plays a lot of role, but it is just how you pack and deliver it. So user is no more the old user where you will just deliver him any idiotic content and he will just share it or forward it. So you have to be very careful what topics we are choosing. Yeah.
Sure. Thanks, Abhinav. Yeah. I would like to now know from, Deepayan, that with the proliferation of new, digital media, how did you adapt your marketing strategies to tap the new age consumer?
See, the new age customers, first of all, we get it from a particular category which comes from the ambit of prayer and ambit of fragrance. Because as you know, Cycle is the leading manufacturer of antiques and the puja products. So these two particular ambits is evolving over time, but drastically started evolving with the new age customers, with all this technological and communication development that's happening across the country. Now, this narrative building, as probably Abhinav also told it, that this particular is a wholesome game, what we understand as a company. That it is not only that what is that particular campaign brief or that particular communicative narrative for that particular communication. It is also about how the product and service is reaching to them, how we are serving them, what they are actually taking it back home, and how they are experiencing it, and how the particular product and service is performing at that particular time. So this entire experience stays with the entire three consumers, and based on that, they started absorbing this particular narrative, and it started building within them, within their mind space. And when it started building within their mind space, this particular narrative started forming. Because whatever a marketer will think, that's one part of it. But actually, when the market had tested, consumers and customers have actually realized it in the same way, and they come and started believing it. The so-called that trust started getting formed. So that's the way we need to do it. In Cycle, I can give you 3 examples which is relevant regarding this. One is, we have come up with very innovative products like You may have seen that Dhuna or Sambrani. In some places it's known as Sambrani, some places it's known as Dhuna. That's the kind of very traditional practices in the traditional homes. It has a cleansing nature for the air. It also has very finest energy purifier. What we have done is we have put it in a charcoal cup and we have encapsulated that and created a cup sambrani, which is a very readily convenient product to be used. And this new age consumers have started picking it up very fast. It is not moving that well from my retail shelf, but it is started moving significantly well from my e-commerce sites and all the online stores. We have started making a DIY do-it-yourself puja packs, which is a very neatly done puja pack with all the essential components there in that particular puja packs, where you will be able to even chant. There's an app associated to it. You can log into that particular app and you can do that particular chant happening. So this is the products what they're looking for. You can come to our e-commerce site and you can make your own incense. There's a custom incense making possible in our e-commerce site. You can come to choose your fragrance. You can choose experience-based, fragrance-based, making your own incense, and you make a private level for you and give it to you so that you can take it and use it on your own. We have a pure prayer app which has started working very well in this pandemic time because it books Shiva and the puja for you in all Karnataka temples. You can call for a Purohita priest, whatever religion or caste you want, that kind of a Bangalore. You can book a Kshetra puja in case of let's say you want to do that one in Gaya. So you can do that for you for doing this thing. So this is the product offering completely led by innovations. We'll be able to tap the new age customers in that way, right? So this is the overall scenario we need to look for when we are doing the narrative building for any particular brands.
Thanks, Deepan.
Thanks, Jordan. That's very innovative, I must say. On it. So, Suvir and Arindam, this one is for both of you. Suvir, you can answer from an agency point of view, and Arindam, you can answer this from a marketer's point of view. See, data is, we all know data is fuel of almost every marketing activity, right? How do you weave this data-backed market research into content marketing?
Suvir, do you want to go first, or?
Suvir, you can go first and then Arindam can join.
Thanks. I'll go first. So Rahul, I think I'd like to give an example, while answering this question, just so that it's able to build a little bit of relevance with, audiences that will be watching this. So we work with a large Indian manufacturer called Dabur, which I'm sure everyone on this panel is familiar with, and one of the largest Indian manufacturers across a variety of different categories, and very core to its indigenous Indian roots. And Dabur makes an effort to kind of market pan India, and they break down their marketing strategy state by state, region by region, and they really manage to hit the hinterlands of India in a fabulous manner. So I would like to give their example by answering. So, there's one part that you spoke about in content marketing that I would like to talk about specifically, which is called influencer marketing, right? There's been a massive influx of influencer marketing today by virtue of the fact that today, influencers don't necessarily need to deliver reach and impact. You could find a regional influencer who speaks to a set of audiences in a language, and therefore has great relevancy in that particular state or region or market, or call it what you want. So there's been a very big adoption of influencer marketing when it comes to brands that have regional marketing campaigns that really go down to the hinterlands, down to tier 2, tier 3. So Dabur also adopts this philosophy. Now I want to give the example of how data has really assisted with content marketing, influencer marketing, which I'm going to use interchangeably as far as this example is concerned. So let's say that Dabur was looking to launch a product and targeted specifically to women who are the homemakers in a particular state. The easy thing for us to do was to start filtering who are the relevant influencers on the basis of the language that they speak, right? Now, typically, if I had to go back 24 months, this process of selection of the influencer was made on no data. It was made on the fact that the influencer has relevant content that could potentially fit the brand's vision and fit the brand's personality and the brand's ethos. Today, because of the data is available to us, across various different tools, the selection of the influencer and the modus for generation and promotion of that content of that influencer has now changed dramatically. To give you an example from 2 years ago, just to kind of put some context to this, we served as the agency on record for L'Oreal, and for Maybelline, the brand ambassador was Alia Bhatt, who is a very popular Indian actress. And very often there would be a suggestion from the mainline agency saying that, well, look, we're doing these campaigns on on mainline, and we would love Alia Bhatt, who is the brand ambassador, who's probably starring in the TVC, to replicate the same campaign on digital and to post the TVC on her, and 2 years ago, it was easy for us to open up a dashboard and say, look, 65%, 75% of Alia Bhatt's following is actually Indian men. Because Indian men want to see what Alia Bhatt is up to. And while she may be the brand ambassador for Maybelline, which is a women's beauty and skincare brand, her followers on digital are actually male. Now, with the step of, coming 2 steps forward with where data is today, not only are we able to look at what the male-female following is, not only are we able to break down by state and by city where her following comes from, we're also able to identify interest groups of people that follow these influencers. We're also able to identify potential professions. We're also able to identify what other brands or what other influencers or celebrities they follow. So we're able to now build a demographic, a psychographic, and a geographic profile of our audiences across platforms that offer us content marketing opportunities. And as a result, the approach has become so much more targeted and so much more specific in nature that we're now able to influence both the message and the media so much more cohesively by virtue of how much data we have available to us. Now we're able to start collecting data at a first party basis on the basis of which customers are, or which TG is actually engaging with our audiences, and then through content marketing able to retarget them through the waterfall effect, right? Someone who's seen my first piece of communication, I then speak differently to him the second time, speak differently to him the third time, speak differently to him the fourth time, versus someone who's not reacted or engaged with my communication at all, and because of the availability of both third party and first party data, and we'll talk about that later, but the availability of both third party and first party data, we're now able to make our targeting so much more focused and so much more strategic in its approach to really deliver high impact and relevant reach. Over to you, Arindam.
Correct. Thank you, Subhi, for setting the context. So the market research, we talk about data-based market research, the context has really changed in last few years. So previously when we used to talk about market research, we used to talk about, questionnaires being filled by thousands of respondents, statistical mathematical models, trying to discover patterns and shifts, big data, data mining, all those big words. Now all these are very important and useful tools for strategic decision making, but may not be feasible for every piece of content. For successful content marketing, market research takes a quicker and continuous form. So before I come to that, since you are talking about Bharat, tier 2 and tier 3 cities, let me touch upon that fact first. Now there are 3 main things happening which is driving the latest content boom in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. One is your smartphone penetration, second is affordable data, and third is young population. A report says that 50% of India's population is below the age of 25. So, and this young population is creating content, consuming content, and that is why this surge in consumption of generation of content in last few years. Now, Bharat, which was previously considered to be a consumer of content, has started generating a huge volume of content also through YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and whatnot. Now, with this huge volume of content created, what has happened is the shelf life of content is becoming lesser and lesser. People have already forgotten what went viral a couple of days ago. I mean, if you talk about the particular Rahul Dravid ad, Indira Nagar Ka Gunda, it was very popular a couple of days back. Now we have totally forgotten about it. And something else now is making more sense than the creator. Okay. So the shelf life of content has really gone down. Alright. So if you merge these 2 facts, what you will get is this content is like this fast moving train on which your customers are traveling. And the job of market research is to keep track of that train to make sure the brand can get on board at the right time. This is possible only when the brand is continuously on the top of things, keeping track of various media and the web in general to know what is being said, what's trending, consumer sentiments, emotional shifts, etc. and utilizing all these readings to make content which breaks the clutter and adds some kind of value to the consumer's life and emotions.
Thank you. That was wonderful, Arindam. Now, Abhinav, when you're using this data to create content, and when you measure it, you need certain data pointers as output, right? Basically to put them against the inputs. So how do you track and measure success of any content piece that you do?
I think this is one of the question we keep answering. All the marketeers keep answering to the management almost every second, third day, or like every time they have a question. Oh, what are you doing? How to measure it? See, it is also what to measure and why to measure and when to measure, because we have too much of data. We have so many things, and you really need to understand what you're looking into. So the objective has to be defined for each campaign. It cannot be have like, oh, content marketing has a broad objective. So you have to have take each campaign and each channel you're using. So you have to plan on that. So it will be more like it should be so you plan it, and you plan it that what was the main objective. It was to bring up recall, or it was to establish a new story. So it could be different ways how you can plan this the measurement, but then the objective has to be defined, because then the same there is no one answer I can give that this will do all the measurement for all the marketing or content marketing done by everyone else. It will be very much specific and customized to the people's need. And it is not that there is something which we are trying to achieve. It is always trying to improve from the last one. So what you have done, you want to benchmark according to your data, because that is the data which is coming in your system. So there is another thing. When me personally as a marketer, when I do a lot of measurement, I will see the data which comes from outside, from the third party, but I will not take them seriously, because that is the data which is coming from outside. The data which comes in my system, how the user entered and how the user reacted, or how the user clicked on something and came in, that data is more important to me than any third party survey or any other agency's data. And so this is how we try to establish objective in the beginning, measure those objectives, and then keep benchmarking and keep scaling from there. These are the benchmarks we are creating. So every month we need to find some improvement, and we can grow on that. So it is like you have to like to become a great marketeer or something. It is like a continuous process. You keep measuring it, you keep managing, changing, and tweaking it. So there would be no ultimate formula which will just deliver everything. You can put it in an algorithm and it will start running. No, it will not happen. But at least the content that people have to understand, you have to give a story. So it will be not very easy to measure. So it is not just about when we talk a lot of time about content marketing, and when I start questioning my social media team, then they start sharing likes, comments, and those things. This is engagement. Like, this is also, we engage with the people. Why don't we measure this? But then how to measure this? So in content marketing, you cannot just measure how many people liked or how many people commented. You have to see the real measurement. So you have to analyze the sentiment of those comments. The number of comments these days doesn't make any sense, but what was the sentiment of the comment? So these are some of the things that some of the metrics which we keep in mind, and this is how we look into the measurement of any marketing or content marketing efforts.
Right, and thank you, Abhinav. And I think most of us would agree with your explanation. Sentiment analysis, I think, the need of the hour. Let's take a quick word of a marketer quickly, and on the challenges that are faced by them while reaching out to the consumers from tier 2 and tier 3 markets. So, Joypin, Cycle is 70-plus-year-old brand, right? First of all, does it still have marketing challenges? And we have marketers from very young brands as well. Abhinav, Varun, Arindam, Pranav. If your challenges are very different from the Joypin's, please, I would love to have your views as well. But for now, over to Joypin.
Rahul, I think in marketing last the challenges will rise, because the marketer's job is to convert a challenge to opportunities. That's why you all have all this bright minds and those smiling faces are there, because as you put rightly, see, it is. I don't think it is only due to this boom of social media. It was even before. Now, this tier 2 platform is when, without social media, also when we used to do marketing of product of such a age-old products like other products. We used to do sentimental analysis, and the sentimental analysis is what the retailers are talking about your brand, how the distributors are holding it and serving it, how my particular salesperson is carrying it, and how proudly he is presenting it. All this is sentimental analysis of the brand. So if it has not been taken, positioned, and narrative has not been built over years with care, with responsibility to take care of that particular brand. That narrative will not be built over years. And sentimental analysis will show you that there is gap, there are flaws which need to be taken care of. I'll just touch upon the challenges what you have asked for very quickly, because I understand that we have a rich panelist who will be catching up on the digital part of it. I'll just quickly tell you even the other part of marketing also, there are significant challenges which is evolving because of the digital evolution that is happening across the country. Because of the T2 and T3 places, this is a complicated scenario of reaching and servicing to T2 and T3 consumers and the retailers. It is happening because quickly across categories, the leverage of e-commerce is happening to reach scale or to gain scale. And it is happening very quickly because most of the brands are agile to innovate. They are finding out that there is meaningful engagement in the social media. They are adopting omnichannel strategy in e-commerce, and they are coming up with a subscription model. All this is making the e-commerce leverage the scale to gain scale. And this is make a complete paradigm shift in case of classic reach and service model, which is based on a hub and spoke model, that you have the existing trade channel to replenish and reach the stocks. You have authorized distributors, super stockists, and sub distributors to reach the stocks. And there also a big amount of churn is happening because the future lies in digitalization of those particular retailers. They are very interested to do that. Recently this particular ongoing pandemic has shifted people who are interested by 10%. Now 75% of our 13 plus million retailers are interested to do some amount of digitalization at different form, at different phases of his business. It probably sometimes is going to be need of power for them that they have understood. And all this has created a different campaign narrative, a communication narrative for the brand. Are we relevant? Are we simple? Are we really timely? Are we talking about really the content what our tier 2 and tier 3 consumers are interested about? So I just give a very simple example, as Karan also has given a very right example. That is, in all our social platforms, we have started adding vernacular pages. And as we started taking the content vernacular, we see a plethora of responses coming in because they were able to relate. They are able to understand that yes, this is the brand what I use, he is talking in my language. So this is the brand what I cater to. So this is probably going to be a very significant paradigm shift in this particular places of tier 2 and tier 3 cities where we need to take the brand along. And their narrative is going to be evolved by that.
Thank you so much, Arpan. Kind of consumer behavior is ever changing, and yours is a business where I think continuous adjustments are needed in marketing strategies. How often does PSL does that? I mean, do you guys entirely follow a fixed marketing strategy throughout the year, or is it ad hoc for you all? How does it work out?
So, especially with the pandemic and the changing nature of our business, everything is constantly changing, right? So I think before we get into specific PSL, I think you have to understand that mine and Varun, the Varun's in the poker industry as well, our challenges are very different. The biggest issue we actually have is the industry. The minute you hear the word poker, right, it starts right there. Oh, poker, what is poker? Poker is gambling. Okay, first thing. Second, other thing is, poker is a really cool game. It's in all these Casino Royale movies and everything. And you know what? Poker is only for the elite member of the society. Poker is only for famous people. And then the other part is that, poker means money. So that means you need to be rich, you need to have a lot of money, else you cannot play poker. So when you're talking about tier 2, tier 3 Bharat, our biggest challenge is obviously the taboo, right? Starts with the taboo and then it goes on to multiple other challenges. So as a company, what are we doing to overcome these challenges? Is this? Sorry, excuse me. The main thing that we're doing is that so now there are two things. One is what kind of content we make, and second is how do we reach the right audience, right, or the tier 2, tier 3 audience. So when it comes to the what kind of content we make, we've been making regular poker content for pretty much every poker company in India for the last few years. So that's normal poker. But the challenge here is most people don't know poker, most people don't understand poker, and people who love poker also. Sorry, I'm going to be specific to poker in this. People who love poker also. It's not cricket. It's not that high action, right? So do people really want to? Does every person who knows poker want to watch it? Potentially not. So what are we doing? We are talking now again about emotional connect. We're actually working on a docu-series that releases in the next 10 days. This docu-series doesn't have a single hand of poker. It's about the lives of professional poker players. It's about the study and discipline. It's about the mental aspect of the game. It's about determination. It also covers the dark side of poker. And we are weaving the story together through the people who play poker and through a lot of voice of people. So we're talking about relatability. I can't be pushing poker to a tier 2, tier 3 audience who has just heard the word poker, right? Poker content's not going to work. But human stories will. The emotional connect that people make with people, and they make with controversies, they make with drama. The only difference is it's a reality show. There is nothing fabricated. It's all true. So the way we are looking at content is through this docu-series. This is one of our strategies, and it's in Hindi. So multilingual plays a very, very important role. The emotional connect, multilingual, and these two are the basic points. And second and third thing is that why we tied up with Woot specifically is that Woot already is going to tier 2 and tier 3 cities, right? The people who can relate to that kind of content. So instead of making small pieces of content, hoping they go viral, we've actually invested a lot of time, effort, money, energy in going for one big show and pushing it hard and making it really relatable. So for us, it's relatability through emotions, I would say.
Thanks, Pranav. Thanks for that.
Hi, Sudhir. I would like to have your insights. Can a brand sell enough solely with content marketing?
I wish the answer to that question was yes, but unfortunately, the answer to that question is no. And I'll tell you why as well. So on the internet, there are fundamentally three types of content. There's branded content, which brands run. There's editorial content, and then of course now there's entertainment content. When I've spoke about Voot. Voot is an OTT platform that typically programs entertainment content for consumers to consume as part of their entertainment quota of content consumption. Now, of course, as an advertising agency, our job is to create branded content for brands as a living, and that's what we do for a living. But we personally have a lot of interest in editorial and in entertainment content as well. In fact, we just launched a media company called Mammoth Media, and Rahul briefly spoke about the podcast that we launched 12 weeks ago, which is the first initiative. We're also launching our editorial platform called manslife.in next month, which is an infotainment destination, lifestyle destination for Indian men across sports, entertainment, lifestyle, and auto. And of course, we're also in the business of now producing web series across a variety of different platforms. Just had a biking series released on MX Play last month as well. So what ends up happening is that the role of content has a very specific role in the funnel if you really look at it. Now, fundamentally, when you spend money on the internet from a marketing perspective, there are two large types of campaigns. There are brand campaigns and there are acquisition campaigns. When you spend money on content, you're typically spending money on building brand. So effectively, the role of that marketing is to generate a certain amount of generate a certain amount of awareness. Now, as you go down the funnel, you realize that there are different marketing tools that serve different purposes. I'm a big propagator of the content community commerce model. I fundamentally believe that the more you invest in content, the more you're investing in brand. And what that's going to do over a period of time is it's going to amortize your cost of customer acquisition. So if you're creating a certain amount of content as yourself as a brand, then you're using influencers to distribute that content. You're creating consideration, you're creating education, you're creating engagement, you're creating advocacy for your brand. So eventually, then when you try and recruit users to the bottom of your funnel to actually transact or to convert or to open their purse and open their wallets and give you some money, the user's thinking, hey, I already know this brand, right? Hey, I already probably trust this brand because my favorite celebrity / influencer uses them, talks about them. So then when I'm planning my holiday and Delton sends me an ad saying, book a 3-night and 4-day stay at XYZ hotel for XYZ price, I've already taken care of that awareness, education, engagement, advocacy piece through my content marketing initiatives. So therefore, over a period of time, my cost of customer acquisition starts coming down considerably because content has now amortized that cost. So for brands to continuously invest in content is great because it's building brand, which is, yes, an intangible. I understand building brand is an intangible, but from a tangible perspective, it definitely amortizes customer acquisition cost over a period of time when it comes to consistently spending money on delivering content that builds a brand narrative in the story. So can I only sell through content? No, but does it aid my selling process? Definitely.
So, if I may add to what Suvir, sorry for speaking out of turn. If I may add to what Suvir has said, content is never meant to sell anyway. Okay, so if I may give you an analogy, so suppose you go on a date with this girl, all right, and in your mind you feel, okay, she's the right girl, it's love at first sight for you, and marriage is in your mind right away. But if you outrightly propose, what you get is you sound very pushy, and what you get to hear is a no. Straight away no, right? So what you do is you divulge something about yourself first. Okay, you tell your name, you tell what you do, okay, and in the next meeting, probably in the second date, you will ask the girl what is her, ambition, what is her set of family story, etc. And in the subsequent 4th, 5th, and 6th meetings, you share some family videos, photos, etc., etc. She gets to know about you, you get to know about her, and probably during the 7th or 8th meetings, you pop this question to her. And then she says yes because the trust is already built. So the job of content is to build that trust between the brand and the consumer so that when the time is right, the sale can be closed.
Sure. Excellent analogy. Thank you. To Varun and Pranav, please, share some insights, we would like to hear from you that during this pandemic, targeting, consumers in tier 2 and 3 cities must have been a very, very difficult, ballgame altogether that we all know. We would like to have your, insights, shed some light on the same. So that's what it is. So maybe Varun can go first and follow up Pranav. Yeah.
Sure. So I think what the pandemic did is, it gave a chance to the users to come to the brands, to some of the brands, right? Which was not the case really before. So you hear a lot of people saying that, during the pandemic, people tried out a lot of new things, at home, being at home. But what I feel really, most of them were not trying new things, but they were trying things what they used to do a lot while they were growing up, right? You would see posts of people doing painting, cooking, and in the similar passion, you would see that, gaming was something which gained a lot of traction there, right? So India is at core is a gaming country, we believe, right? So you would see Diwali cards, it all goes hand in hand, right? So only difference this time was that there were no boards or cards, right? As brands in that industry, we had to be present at the right places, the right searches, right? That is A. B, it also gave, this pandemic situation gave more time to the brands to create a brand registration or recall to the audiences, because just for the pure reason that the audiences also had a little more time to spend, right? They were anyway spending time on channels like social media, but during this pandemic, that spend time went really high, right? So, like the other panelists mentioned, that what really is important is that the content that you serve has to be what your audiences want to see, right? So during the pandemic, if you made sure that you're serving that sort of content, you would get more value or traction out of that. So in the similar manner for our poker brand, which is Pokerbazi, we picked up segments, and for the limited audiences which know about poker already or into this domain, we served different sort of content which was about what was happening, the biggest events happening around that time, all online though. For the broader audiences, right? Like Pranav mentioned, we've also associated in the past, and we created a lot of game streaming content, right? Now, what that and that content was localized, right? The Indian players playing the game, the actual game, and people have seen that happening in the Vegas with World Series of Poker, big bank poker events, Poker Glory, Money, all of that, right? So when people saw this content on their social media channels, right, they actually came to know that okay, poker is a real thing. It's not just something, it's not just another card game, right? It is something that really happens, and there is some part of skill to it as well. So that entire narrative was created around that uh, reality plus skill gaming part of poker. That was one. I think the second thing, which is more relevant to the tier 2, tier 3 audiences, is our fantasy gaming vertical ballebaz. Fantasy gaming, more relevant to cricket. It's cricket being a religion in the country. It naturally gets a lot more traction. So, unfortunately for fantasy cricket and fantasy sports in general, during the pandemic, globally, all sports were down, right? So, the fantasy sports industry came to a standstill. And for us as well, there was no business as usual at that time, right? But what we did is we tried out little innovative ways to keep the audiences engaged. So, for example, we brought in virtual fantasy. Right now, you can't really do real money leagues with virtual fantasy. But what we did is we live streamed virtual fantasy games and did some premium, pre-money based fantasy leagues on that. And what that did for us is it just did not keep the existing users engaged, but also we saw a lot of new traction coming in from these tier 2, tier 3 cities, even when there was no actual leagues happening. Right? So I think it happened both ways, both these points, like, brands, people came to the brands, and brands also got a time to get to these audiences more. Yeah.
Sure, sure. Yeah, Pranav, can we hear from you?
See, we are actually, when it comes to tier 2, tier 3 cities, we've not really targeted too many of those immediately because we didn't have a product for that. Because the game poker is not popular in tier 2, tier 3 cities yet, right? So until we don't build the base, until we don't go multilingual, until we don't reach them, also we're coming out. So what we're doing now, and our products are launching in the next 1 week, is another product called Hashtag Poker. So Hashtag Poker is a free-to-play poker platform. We say don't play for real money, play for social bonding, play for fun, play with your friends, and more than that, there's a lot of focus on learn, right? And we're not telling you learn poker and then go and try and win a crore. No, we're saying you learn poker responsibly, learn poker for fun, and you learn poker to compete with your friends and be the best amongst them. If you do want to play for money, then you do bankroll management. So I think, especially with our industry, tier 2, tier 3 is kind of a chicken and egg story, right? It's suddenly reaching out to them when there are all those problems that I already said about the perception, elitist, and real money. I think right now we have a much bigger challenge. We have to first build the base of poker in the country. We have to say that, listen, you can play without gambling, you can learn the game, and although there are like 10,000 books of poker on Amazon, we believe that it's not been taught properly, right? So tier 2, tier 3 cities, we're going to handle them. We will teach them poker the right way and the most important and responsible way, which is not only good for us and not real money gaming. I think it's going to be great for the industry because the poker industry has a lot of potential, crazy amount of potential in India, but there are all these problems. So that's about it. So our strategy is a bit different. We're going to start reaching out to them now with proper products which they can adapt to, because they are multilingual.
Sure, sure. Thanks, Pranav. So my next question is for Arindam. A strong brand narrative helps you to create customer experiences that change the way the clients feel about your brand. What role do you think content marketing platforms play in establishing a stronger bond between the brand and its audiences? Yeah.
Thank you, Rona, for the question. See, our content marketing platform is just a tool. It is just to organize, distribute, and track, organize and distribute content and track results. What creates the bond is the content, and the content is evolving as the media is evolving. So gone are the days when brands used to make just one 30-second commercial and be done with the campaign. Brand campaigns have now taken a different form where it is more integrated and vie for eyeballs in multiple mediums simultaneously in different formats. So a recent report from Google says that there are three V's which are important for content, which is voice, video, and vernacular for India. All right, and this is the way Indians are interacting with the content. Now, if you talk about Bharat in particular, the tier 2 and tier 3 cities, content takes a more complex form, all right, because every 50 to 100 kilometer, the language changes, the culture changes completely, all right, and to stay relevant, the content needs to imbibe all these variations, all right, and here is where content marketing platform helps. It gives a bird's eye view of the entire battlefield so that you can share the right content with the right people at the right time. But ultimately, the soul is the content, not the content marketing platform.
Rahul?
Let's so now we are almost out of time. So what we'll do is that we'll quickly move towards closure and have a minute each for all of you, where we'll discuss a minute, maybe less, but maybe 2 minutes each for you to discuss quick success stories which you might have experienced during pandemic times. So would love to know what Paytm or PSL or Bazi Games or Cycle Agarbatti did to efficiently and successfully reach their consumers in these markets. So let's start with Abhinav. Then Pranav can come in. Then Varun and Dwaipan can finally give his closing remarks. Right? Over to you, Abhinav.
Yeah, thank you, Rahul. So a lot has changed in the last thing. Just few days ago, I was speaking on another panel, and there was a discussion. What is the difference between your first tier and second tier and third tier city audiences? Because then we want to rate them according to the transaction value, the ticket size, what value transaction they are making. And so we also have to understand the kind of services we offer to all these cities. So like if you just talk about the recently, just a few moments ago, so we mentioned about the financial aspect of it. So like if you look at a financial investment part, like where you plan your mutual fund, stock market, or where you plan your future and everything. And those savings, it was only available in the bigger cities where you go to a bigger bank and the guy is catching you to buy mutual fund, or somebody's at least trying to press you to buy these investment. But the smaller cities which hardly had banks, the second tier or third tier, they were first struggling to get the banks, then only they can get someone to sell you mutual fund or stocks. But this was much easier when we started offering this. Also on Paytm Money, it can be easily adapted because now people are learning from the computer, so they are going on YouTube, consuming those content, learning things, how to place the orders in the market and everything. And so it is also about what product and services we are offering in the second and third tier city. It is not just about what content, how we will market and how we will gain them. It is also about what value add we will do to their service, and they are a very different type of audience. It is not like just because they interact in a different language, there's nothing which differentiate them a lot, but then we also have to equate them at par as with the kind of services and products we deliver in the first tier city. We have to tell them that that same thing is also available here, and we have to just go and explain them nicely. And if the services are good, because before they were not getting, and so the brands will win if we are able to deliver the right product and tell them what's the value of this thing is. So just one example, and I would like to close with this. Yeah.
Sure. So I'll just say that, like I already mentioned, especially during the pandemic and the period post that also, there was a huge surge in certain segments, which includes gaming, right? And as a whole, that has sustained in itself as well. So what as marketers we had to do was really to be carefully selective of what channels to choose from, right? There was an influx of marketing proposals coming in that, with the time consumers spending more time on each and every channel, everyone would reach out to you that, you advertise or do content with us, right? But I think that careful selection of going amplifying campaigns on the right social media channels, because that also allows you specific targeting into these different audiences, right? Based on regions, based on other demographics, right? Plus, we did a couple of big influencer campaigns. that was based on a pan-India level as well. We roped in some big comedians. That brought in some good value traction for our poker campaign. And for other verticals, for Rummy as well as the fantasy cricket, we did a lot of influencer marketing, especially in the southern regions. And that really helped us along the way.
Thanks, Varun. Gurapran?
Yeah, Rahul, thank you and thank you all for such a lovely, insightful discussion and different arena and different part of businesses. See, I will just share with you one of very interesting phenomenon what happened. It is not only for this particular pandemic, but I will share with you because I think we have shared very neatly in the before that how all this 3 or 4 pieces comes together can really create a content which is shared. It's a recurring cycle. What happened is we have been a brand which have been seen in cricket most of the time. Now, how we have started cricket was with third umpire. That particular time, there was when third umpire also started. That particular time, there is an opportunity that you can brand that particular screen, and it's a TV property, as you know. And there we have embedded our communication or our narrative as everyone has a reason to pay. And exactly that particular time, the entire nation is actually praying either for an out or for an out. So that particular situation, that particular moment, it was a perfect marriage between the objective of the communication, that's the consumer insight, the particular message, whatever you have built in, that's your brand narrative, and that particular media, what you have actually taken. And I will tell that moment, that particular moment has seized the engagement with reach, with scale, and we could reach that recipes. I remember we have started doing from 2007 onwards, and this particular thing came in 2013-14 vividly in the TV. I was going to a different part of Bihar, UP, which has long past that to entire cities where we are going and we are connecting. People are able to connect with us. They know us. They have seen it in that particular thing. So this is a moment, I think, which we have seized with this right assembly of all this particular thing which can come into and make that happen. Overall, this is actually building trust. The whole point of view was in this particular pandemic, we have understood that people become to that particular brand which they believe in, they rely on. Tier cities that consumers are purely based on trust. And if you are safe, if we are reliable, if we have compliance, if we take care of their privacy, if we are ethical and if we are transparent, then we can build the trust.
Thank you, Mr. Das. And on that note, I think this discussion has made it pretty evident that a strong narrative is able to connect with the audience in this new market called Bharat. It is unparalleled. With the right kind of content marketing and enhancing customer experience, I think brands will be able to build a rapport with their audience in this emerging marketplace. Maybe I don't think more than a year will pass by and brands will make that rapport. On that note, thank you so much, Varun, Pranav, Arindam, Runa, Suvir, Gurapran, and Abhinav for joining us today. It was wonderful hosting you, and all the very best. Thank you so much.